Hey, budget gardeners, Vita Loca here. Join me as we do a mid July garden tour. There is a lot in bloom, so let's get started. We are on the south side of my house, and this begins what I call the long border. You can see there are some beautiful colors in here. I absolutely love my bee balm or Monarda, and not only do I love it, so do the hummingbirds. Years ago, I used to put up hummingbird feeders, but I no longer do that because I found that there are plenty of flowers in the yard blooming at all different times that attract all sorts of pollinators, including the hummingbirds. At the base of the bee balm, we have a beautiful daylily, and it's a reblooming daylily called Stella d'Oro. I've been pretty diligent about coming in here and deadheading it and cleaning it up at least 1 to 2 times a week. They are due for another cleanup. The more that you deadhead your reblooming daylilies, the more that they'll bloom for you. Plus, it just keeps any daylily nice and tidy and clean. There are three beautiful colors in here. Other than the yellow of the daylilies as well as the red of the bee balm, you can see a small pop of the coneflower or echinacea. I would say coneflower is one of my favorite perennials in the yard, but it's really hard because there are so many beautiful perennials that are blooming currently in my garden. As we move along the long border, there are a number of hydrangeas that are just starting to bloom, and I love them for their height as well as their creamy white flowers. There are more daylilies and more hydrangeas as we move along the long border, and I want you to see as we peek down the long border, there is an explosion of color. The reason I call this the long border is it's, first of all, a very long flower bed. But also, I want to let you know that you can only access this flower bed on one side, on this side where the lawn is. Because if you peek over towards the back, it actually just goes down into the woods there. So, for that reason, I try really hard to layer this flower bed so that we have taller plants, trees, shrubs towards the back and shorter plants towards the front. I'm always experimenting in all my flower beds. I mention it in many of my videos that gardening is a process and it should be something that we enjoy. What gives me a lot of joy is trying to find plants that bloom at different times of the year so that I have interest going at all times. And I do try to layer my plants so that I have shorter plants towards the front and taller plants towards the back. I don't really have any sort of a theme when it comes to colors, but I just like a whole bunch of different colors, and I like flowers blooming at different times of the year. The spotted leaves that you see here are lungwort or pulmonaria. They looked really pretty when they were blooming during the early spring months, but now they add a nice interest towards the front of this flower bed. And right near it, they're all budded up. This is Rebecca or black-eyed Susan. I added this in here a few years ago because I noticed that during the middle to end of summer, my garden had a little bit of a lull. And I want you to notice that they are all budded up. They are ready to go. And they are going to be blooming for us as soon as the coneflowers start to fade and as soon as the bee balm starts to fade. Towards the back of the flower bed, the creamy white flowers that you see, that's Annabelle hydrangea. And we recently added those into this garden space. I wanted to add a little bit of white, and I thought that that was a perfect mix inside of this space. This flower bed has a lot of things that have already gone by. You wouldn't even know that they're here, like the peonies or the daffodils. And that's the beauty, is trying to come up with those combinations where as soon as plants go by, other plants appear. For example, the leopard's bane has already gone by, and you can see its beautiful heart-shaped leaves here. The same is true with the iris. Those have gone by. And then we recently came in and added these beautiful little purple flowers, and they're just small plants right now, but within the next few years, they will take off. That is betony. And right near the betony is the beautiful coneflower. Right behind both of those plants, they're just popping up. That is the great blue lobelia. That is another wonderful late summer plant. That will bloom shortly after the Rebecca. We had come in here and we had cut back the oxeye daisy, a type of Shasta daisy. And hopefully they should be putting out another flush of blooms later in the summer. The beautiful clematis is still blooming and looking really pretty in this space. And I love the height that it gives this area. When it comes to plants, I love annuals and perennials equally. But in this long border, I really try hard to pack it with the perennials. And the plants really repeat themselves in this flower bed. I enjoy that because I like to stand back and I like to just see the same colors repeating themselves. I also like to add that element of vertical interest. So here we have another clematis, and it's going to bloom hopefully by our next garden tour. I want you to see all the flower buds on there. I really enjoy growing my gardens through seed, through division, basically through propagation, even through cuttings. You really can garden on a budget when you do that. We have another clematis on this trellis. It may or may not bloom for us this season. We'll have to wait and see. We recently added small pops of red down the long border because I noticed I was missing the bee balm. And we shopped my yard, we shopped my plant nursery, and I want you to just see how they're looking. They're looking so pretty. We already had the coneflower in here, so we have that nice pop of purple, and then we added some more of the hydrangeas, the Annabelle hydrangeas. And those were hydrangeas that I grew from hardwood cuttings. I want to give you some updates on some container pots. We just barely potted up this Martha Washington geranium. So by our next garden tour, it should really be filling in. I like to put pots and containers on top of tree stumps in my yard. I feel like it's whimsical, it adds a little bit of interest. And then in this container pot, we have some lobularia or alyssum that we started from seed. And then we also have a beautiful diplodenia that I overwintered in my garage, and it now has some buds on it. Usually when you overwinter plants like that, especially in cool areas where I live in New Hampshire, Zone 5B, the diplodenia take their time to bloom, but it's so well worth it. And if I can overwinter that plant each year, I figure why not? Tucked in, you can see near the ground there is a beautiful rose. I just wanted to point that out. I do have a few roses tucked into this space here. Towards the back of this long border, there are a bunch of different shrubs. There are forsythias, there are small leaf rhododendrons, there are even a number of Korean lilacs tucked in back here. There's a little bit of a space open here for opportunity. We recently cut back a large, old fashioned bleeding heart. So I'm thinking about what I'm going to put there. But this space has really evolved over the last number of years. It really has come into its own. Since I have a lot of trees in my yard, I like to take advantage of that. And I have a number of hanging baskets all throughout my yard. I love that look. I think it just adds, again, I'm always looking for that vertical interest, just to add a little bit of element of surprise in a garden space. As we round the corner of this long garden bed, I want to show you some really beautiful things in here. We have the fringed bleeding heart, and this plant will bloom spring, summer through the fall as long as I keep it deadheaded. There is also a beautiful yarrow. It's moonshine, that's the variety, and that's been adding a nice yellow color in this space. And then towards the front of the yarrow is a beautiful begonia, a wax begonia that I started from seed. I love the color of the leaves in this area. The purple colored flower you see is a perennial, and that is scabiosa. It will bloom for me the whole season as long as I keep it deadheaded. The clematis here is starting to go by. It looked really pretty when it was blooming. And other than enjoying the bloom itself, look how pretty this looks after the bloom has gone by. Basically, when it starts creating its seed pod. I think that's equally as gorgeous. Along my driveway, I have the repeating hanging baskets that just add those nice pops of color. And I like to make my container pots on a budget. I use perennials like this one. This is Creeping Jenny. And look how bright the color looks in here. We also have a beautiful lamium or dead nettle. And if I'm diligent about deadheading it, it will keep blooming for me. And then a whole bunch of different colored beacon impatiens. And I never know what color they're going to be because I collect my own seeds. So I always enjoy the different colors that I get. Now I'm going to bring you towards the driveway garden. And this area is really fun. I really enjoy this space. Much of my yard is either full shade or part shade. And it's in areas where it can be pretty dry, which can be challenging, but I'm up for the challenge. We recently planted some astilbe in this little pocket here, and it's looking pretty good. Just to add a little bit of color here, but you can see there is a lot of color happening in this very shady part of my yard. I had planted a bunch of the beacon impatiens that we started from seed this winter, as well as the coleus that we started from seed. I like to collect my own seeds of all my annuals, so I'll be showing you later this season how I do that. We have a hydrangea that's in the center of the bed here, but as we wait for that hydrangea to change its color, just look how pretty these impatiens are finally looking. I had mentioned in my previous garden tour, just wait, they will eventually take off. And boy, have they. They're really happy here. It's always tricky putting annuals in the landscape, I feel, especially in shady situations like this. But with a little creativity, a little bit of time, you can find that perfect combination. And since I still have plenty of coleus and impatiens that need to get in the ground, I'm planning to come in here very soon and just pack in more of those flowers because they really need to get in the ground. We have some perennials in here as well that are blooming, and those are a beautiful astilbe. I got these for free last year. Someone on Facebook Marketplace wanted to have some help with cleaning out her flower beds. Myself, as well as a few other people, went and helped her out. And at that time, I went in and divided each of the plants that I had dug up. We recently planted some of these in this space because I needed to fill it in more, and I'm loving it. In a recent video, together we planted the Annabelle hydrangeas all around the yard. So two of them ended up in this area here. And once they get much larger and established, I think they're really going to be pretty. Just imagine coming up the driveway and seeing those Annabelles blooming. It's going to look so nice. I'd mentioned I like to plant things around trees. You can see there in the distance, I have a type of coral bells or heuchera. And I love it because it's a little bit red. So along with the green leaves that you see in here, I think that red is a nice complement. And as we move this way, you can see we have more of those beautiful red leaves at the base of this tree. Just for perspective, there's the main road down there. And when you come up my driveway on the right is my plant nursery where I sell plants, mostly perennials. And you see the long border up along the driveway on the right. But when you come up the driveway on the left, there's what I call my driveway bed. And from the driveway bed, we're going to head over to what I call the lilac bed, which is right there. I recently spent 2 days just cleaning up this flower bed. Part of that was just regular maintenance, and that included edging the flower bed, coming in and cutting back all of my creeping phlox, which is towards the front of the bed, just to keep it nice and tidy. And after I cut back the creeping phlox, I gave it some 10-10-10 fertilizer, just to keep it looking nice and green as a ground cover. I also came in and cut back my perennial mums. You usually want to do that by the 4th of July, and that keeps them from getting too big and flopping over. The perennial mums that are in here are a yellow color, so they were cut back pretty hard. After I cut them back, I gave them some 10-10-10 fertilizer. Pretty soon, I'm going to be coming in here and digging and dividing the perennial mums and moving them around, and I'll show you my process for doing that. I also came in here and deadheaded a bunch of my daylilies, and that can be a daily process if you want it to be. But like I said, at a minimum, I come out once a week and do that process just to keep things tidy. Some of the other things that I did in this flower bed was a lot of weeding. We have many maple trees and they drop their little seedlings. So I came in and I pulled out all the maple tree seedlings as well as weeds and then put in a nice layer of mulch. Some other things that I did was towards the back, I have yucca and I just cleaned them up. I cut back the leaves at the base because towards the center is where all the new growth is for the season. And that also made it easier for me to clean out the leaf litter and to just do weeding and put the mulch around it. We had also added another Annabelle hydrangea towards the back here. At the bottom of the lilac tree are a bunch of heuchera, darker colored heuchera, and they're looking very happy. We also have some Millennium allium tucked in towards the back. And as I was working in this space, I got thinking, with the Millennium allium, they're a little tucked in. So I wondered to myself, do you really see them? Do you not? So I'm thinking a little bit more about that. And I'd shown you in a previous video my process for dividing those alliums because I had only bought one and now I have four. Also tucked back towards the back here are a number of sedum. Now this flower bed is definitely not full sun, and some of these plants do better in full sun. So I need to think a little bit more about the plants that are tucked in towards the back here and what I want to remove as well as what I want to add. Our gardens are always changing, and I think that's what makes it fun. I call it pivoting. We're always pivoting and moving around plants. So when it comes to basically cleaning up garden spaces, I try to tackle one flower bed at a time. So I have left off in this flower bed. And then as we continue this way, this is where I'll be working next. Towards the front of this flower bed, there are a bunch of lamb's ear. And we put them here last year. I thought they would look really pretty. And what I'm noticing is the irrigation is hitting them. And our irrigation has rusty water in it, which is discoloring the leaves. So for that reason, I am going to have to move the lamb's ear because lamb's ear is very pretty with its silver colored foliage. But when it has the rust water hitting it, it doesn't look as attractive. So that's okay. We have other areas where we can tuck those in. This is the season of the daylilies. They are in their absolute glory. It's quite early in the morning right now, so they're not fully open. What I'm planning to do is I will be putting in basically pictures of a whole bunch of the daylilies that are blooming. So I'm going to insert that right now. I've been monitoring the light levels in my flower beds. This particular flower bed is considered part shade, but you can see that I'm pushing the limits and I've added plants in here that still do okay, even if they reach for the sun, or maybe they won't bloom to their fullest potential. So, other than the daylilies that you've seen, we also have coneflower or echinacea. So even if a tag says full sun, you can sometimes play around with plants and tuck them into areas that maybe are not full sun. So remember I mentioned about the little maple tree seedlings? That's what I'm talking about. And someone had recently commented about how do I keep my flower beds weed free. I keep it weed free by coming out and weeding them and then putting down a nice layer of mulch. Someone else had asked me, because I live near the woods, don't I get, branches and things like that that fall? And I want to show it because it's important to show it. I definitely do. Whenever I'm out working in these flower beds, I get all sorts of branches, limbs, you name it. It's bound to happen when you live in an area like I do, where there are a lot of trees. And one of my goals a number of years ago was to push the limits, to basically make flower beds where the lawn ends and where the woods begin. If I hadn't done that, I wouldn't have as much space for flower beds in my yard. And I remember looking into that, going on Pinterest, going on YouTube, looking for inspiration where the lawn ends and where the woods begin, because that can be a really tricky way to garden, I feel. And that's why I love sharing my videos with you, because maybe you have a small piece similar to this where you're not sure what to do because you live in a very wooded area. And I want you to notice I took the coral bells or heuchera and I've divided them over the last few years. And I'm trying to play with different colors, different veining on the leaves. And I just kind of repeat the pattern towards the front of this area. Once again, this area is considered either part shade or part sun, I forget. But I've tried to tuck in plants in here that can possibly still bloom in those conditions. And I'm only going to go over the plants that are currently blooming. So, for example, right here we have the beautiful Stokes aster, and it is just either budded up or just starting to bloom. We also have Centaurea or mountain bluet, and I've been pretty diligent about coming in and deadheading it. And so, for that reason, it continues to put out some blooms for me. This area that we're looking at right now is the north side of my house. And before we continue going that way, I want to turn this way. This is the front of my house. And remember I talked about the rusty water? That's what it ends up doing. And I can come in one day when I have time and just clean that up. But let's go over the flowers that are in this space. This is an area that I worked on yesterday. My husband helped me. And thank goodness for that because there was a lot to do in here. And I want to go over that with you. So there are either changes that are going to happen in this bed, or I want to talk about what I recently did in this bed. So let's do that really quickly. Right towards the front here, we have a hardy geranium, a perennial geranium. It's a cranesbill, Max Frey. And I came and pruned it pretty hard. I also came in here and deadheaded all of the Stella d'Oro daylilies. They did bloom really beautifully. I missed it. I wasn't able to show you. So right now what I'm going to do is I'm going to pop up on the screen how beautiful this area looked last year because it was the same effect, but 1 year ago. And then we have the beautiful speedwell or veronica, the purple colored flowers that are now putting on a great show. They're just starting to bloom. And by next week, they'll look even more beautiful. My septic tank is located right here, smack in the middle. So for that reason, I don't like to plant anything right there. So when the yellow daylilies were blooming, just imagine we have the yellow, we have the pink of the spirea. There's also the purple of the veronica or speedwell, and then you couple in with the beautiful white of the hydrangea that's in the back there, and that's an Annabelle hydrangea. And that's a lot of beautiful colors going on in my mid-July garden. So let's talk about some of the changes that are going to happen in here. In this bay window bed, I'd like to add 3 window boxes. And I think that would look really pretty just to add a little bit of height and color. Also, I want to remove the other boxwood. We removed one already this season. Remove the other boxwood. And then see this really tall plant right here? This is Montauk daisy. It's getting close, but I need to come back in here and cut it back one more time. And then what will happen is it will be more bushier and it won't be so tall. But nevertheless, I want to move the Montauk daisy later in the season, probably early fall, and I want to move it to either side of the hydrangea because it gets tall and I think it would look really pretty back there. So those are some of my goals for this space. So I'm just showing you this angle right here. So this empty space right here is where the boxwood got removed. I have some verbascum that's currently blooming and it's looking really pretty. My husband came in here with me yesterday and went to town with removing a whole bunch of the lupin. As some of you know, I had it everywhere in this area. So it got nice and cleaned up. And even though it's early morning, this little bee is going to town. We also have some beautiful echinacea or coneflower. And these are coneflower that I winter sowed. I've made many videos showing you my process for winter sowing. And one thing I want to share with you, friends, is be patient when it comes to your perennials. When you winter sow perennials, they may not bloom for you for 2 years. But look at these perennials. All of these echinacea were echinacea that I winter sowed. So it really is worth it. You just have to be patient. That's all. So we're looking down the front walkway, and this is going to be an unfiltered video. I want you to see everything going on in my yard. I don't want to hide it. So there are a lot of things happening right there. I'll go over that with you. And I have a package here. So let's go over some of the flowers. These container pots are not full and lush because we just put them together recently, but they are starting to fill in. When it comes to adding irrigation, I don't worry so much about doing it perfectly because it's not that important to me. It's more important to just get them hooked up to water. And the same is true with my container pots. Many times my container pots are just old container pots that I have on hand, and it's all good. We have lamium. That's a perennial in my zone. We also have creeping Jenny. There is the beautiful variegated vinca vine that is not hardy in my zone, so I can buy it every year, but I choose not to. Instead, I overwinter that in my garage. And then we have some beautiful calla lilies, and I also overwinter those in my garage rather than buy them every year. In this pot, we have alyssum, and again, we just barely planted these, so they're taking their sweet time. And then we also have the diplodenia that I overwintered in my garage. By our next garden tour, this one should be blooming. So there's my front door. I'm peeking around the corner here. There's my front porch. And I want to show you how pretty these window boxes are looking. They are finally filling in. I have many of the same plants in my yard that I've already shown you. We have the beautiful lamium, which is a perennial. And I want to show you that because it's so nice to be able to just tuck in those perennials. We also have the beacon impatiens, which we started from seed. And then trailing down towards the front is an annual, I believe it's an annual in my area. It's a type of Lismachia. And I've been able to overwinter that the last number of years in my garage. We have 2 container pots here that we put together, and they are now just starting to really fill in. We have the beautiful lobularia or alyssum that we started from seed together. Very pretty purple colored flower. They are starting to look a little bit leggy this time of year. I've made videos showing how to prune alyssum. I'll link them down below. I am planning on coming in here and pruning back my alyssum. It's hard to do because look at them. They are blooming. They're giving us color. But we want them to be a little more compact and tight and not so leggy. Then trailing from the front here is more of the variegated vinca, which every year I divide and turn into more plants for myself. We have more of the beautiful perennial creeping Jenny that adds that nice chartreuse color. And then we have the gorgeous dahlia. And this is filled with buds, but you can at least see what the color looks like. I've been pretty diligent about coming in here and fertilizing all my container pots And also when it comes to the dahlias, deadheading those dahlias. And in this container pot, I also have been coming in and deadheading it, but you can see the color. It's going to be like a nice dark color flower here. I have a pond in my front yard here, and I still have much maintenance to do around this space. So on a different day, I'm going to bring you in and we're going to work around the pond. This whole area has really been work in progress for me, but that's part of gardening, right? We're always working on our spaces. I do want to show you down there are 2 windows. One of my goals is to also add some window boxes there. I think that would look really pretty because we removed some large rhododendrons from this space, and I think window boxes would look beautiful just to kind of carry that repetition down this way. One thing I noticed about my mini hosta that are around my pond is that some mini hosta do well out here with the amount of sun that they get, and some not so much. So what I'm planning to do is come in here and remove some of the mini hosta, like those ones there that don't look so good. I need to do some weeding, and then I'm going to divide the mini hosta that I have in here and move them around. And then I also have some more smallish hosta in my backyard garden that I'm going to put in this area. But you can see that the mini hosta are now starting to bloom. Mini hosta with mini blooms. How sweet is that? Along the walkway here, the annuals are finally starting to fill in. These are all annuals that we started from seed. So we have a lot of coleus. There are a number of alyssum plants that are out here. In the container pots, it's the same repeating plants. They're all budded up, but they're not quite blooming yet, or they've bloomed and I've deadheaded them. So, and what those plants are the dahlias. However, in this pot here, it does have a few dahlias that are blooming. Look how pretty that color is. We do have a perennial that's tucked into this flower bed that's providing some beautiful color, and that's a lance leaf coreopsis. Other than the alyssum towards the front of the flower bed, we also have a number of trailing lobelia plants, just to add in those little pops of purple or blue. And I like mixing in the different colors of lobelia. I'll definitely be collecting their seeds pretty soon. We have snapdragons that are in this flower bed. I had come in and cut them back pretty hard because I wanted them to branch. And I'm really pleased with the fact that I did that. I've chatted with a number of you, and I've heard you that it's really, really hard to cut back plants to get them to bush out. I think it's one of the scariest things as gardeners that we feel because we love our plants so much. But I've mentioned it in videos before that sometimes it's so important to do that because when we cut back our plants a little bit, they'll produce even better for us. For example, look at this coleus. It's really branched out because I've been diligent about pinching it. There's a beautiful, beautiful snapdragon down there. I can't wait to show you what it looks like. I tell myself every year I'm not going to grow snapdragons. But then I looked at this one and I said, why wouldn't I? So pretty. Now, if you're wondering what the variety is of that, I collect my own seeds of all my annuals, including my snapdragons. So I don't have a specific variety name. But I want to encourage you to collect your own seeds of your annuals and grow them this winter with me. I'll show you the whole process. You can grow along with me no matter what zone you're in, no matter how big garden you have, and no matter what kind of grow light system you have. We can do it together. You can start small. but you can really fill in a space on a budget like this. So all of these areas have been weeded, they've been edged, and you can see where the irrigation hits the mulch, and that's why it's a little bit darker there. In this space here, we had worked on this together. We had planted some of the beautiful gomphrena that we had started from seed. They are still pretty small because we just barely planted them in the ground, but we still have much summer left, and I can't wait until they fill out. And then we also planted a number of alyssum plants. We had cut them back pretty hard. So when our next garden tour happens, I can't wait to show you what they look like when they're really blooming. We have more dahlias in pots along with the perennials that I've already shown you, the creeping jenny and lamium. I also want to show you in this space, there are teeny tiny little seedlings of pansies. This is what I call my pansy holding bed. And I had dropped the seeds of my pansies, or I let the pansies drop their seeds. My plan is not to pull out all of these little seedlings. Even if they look like a weedy mess, it does not bother me the slightest bit because I know that these little pansies will bloom their heads off during the late winter months next year. So I purposely let all of these pansies seed themselves in this area. They just look so pretty and they're free plants that I can then dig and tuck into different parts of my yard come early spring. Do you remember when we worked on the space next to the pond? There was a weed that was in here that was taking over. So my goal was to basically take out all of the plants from this area. We did that together, and I wasn't sure what to do with the perennials that were in this space. And I said it would be an experiment to take out all those perennials and move them over into this area here. This area here used to have 3 PJM and Olga small leaf rhododendrons, which we removed together early in the spring. So it really opened up this area, which I like because it's my front walkway. So before I talk about that area with you, I do want to show you some of the container pots that we have here. This area is not meant to be looking very fancy or anything. It's just meant to be an area that's keeping these calla lilies alive. They're little small calla lilies that I had divided. And so that's why they're in these small pots. They have irrigation going to them. And I'm just trying to grow them on to be bigger. So hopefully by next year, they're blooming for us. In these 2 container pots that we have tucked back here, we put these together and the coleus have really filled in. And towards the center are some calla lilies that I've been diligent about deadheading. So this one in particular, you can see it's sending out some new blooms towards the center. And again, I will be overwintering my calla lilies. I like to overwinter a lot of plants in my garage. And here's the other container pot with the coleus around it that we started from seed, as well as some of the trailing vinca. So now let's talk about this space. This space is, I'm almost sure, part sun. It's not full sun, but regardless, you can see that the hosta that are in here are not happy. They're getting too much sun, so I will be moving those to a shadier area of my yard. The same is true for the heuchera. And when they were tucked in near the pond, they were just getting a little bit more shade. And I think that the small leaf rhododendrons were providing the shade that they needed. So they're getting too much sun in this space, and that is quite okay because my initial plan last year was to remove the rhododendrons and to put in a little more formal of a space here. And I was thinking of putting in some lavender and maybe some boxwood or possibly some roses or maybe a combination of 3. So we will be coming in here together. We will be digging these plants out. We'll be putting them in a new area. I'm so excited. I can't wait. We'll add the window boxes. And you can see some of the lavender that we started from seed this winter. Yep. I have more too. This is just some of it. We're going to be putting those along the walkway here. I think it's going to look really pretty and I can't wait. So lots of changes in the garden, but I really am happy with how the annuals are starting to fill in this space. That's something that I don't plan on changing because I really love the look of the annuals on this side of the walkway. And then when you add in the little splash of orange that comes in from the perennial coreopsis, I just think it's a nice combination. These two windows here are windows that go into my garage. And at the base here, these are all Rebecca or Black-Eyed Susan. And I think they look really pretty there. I can't wait to show you what they look like when they're blooming. But they just add that nice, simple pop of color on this side of the garage. And I wanted to show you, we still need to plant these. And I've been debating, should I just do it or should I show you it? Should we do it together? Let me know in the comments. Do you want to plant with me? Do you want to get this done with me? Or do you just want to see instantly, boom, we have flowers in the garden? I want to hear from you. So let me know in the comments below. The one thing I know is I just need to get this done. There are a lot of beautiful things here that need to get in the ground. Look at all the Dollar Tree impatiens. Today's the day I asked Mr. Budget Gardener to help me. He's going to come in and he's going to be hacking these back because they are leggy and they need to be cut back. So we're going to continue heading towards the backyard. Now this has been an interesting space. This has been work in progress, and this year was the year where we made some big change. We had a number of trees cut back. And before we head down that way, I want to show you, I continue the pattern of the heuchera towards the front of this flower space. And I just need to come in here and do the general cutback of my daffodils. You can see that they are ready to be cut back. That's what's laying down in the center there. We have some beautiful astilbe that's still blooming in here. I have columbine that needs to be cut back. A whole bunch of the maple seedlings that need to be weeded out. And when it comes to astilbe, I'll be coming in here and cutting those back. In July, that's about the time when we start cutting back, pruning back our perennials. And that's a lot of what I'm doing this time of year. I did tuck in more of that centaurea or mountain bluet in this garden space. And that's still continuing to bloom because I've been deadheading it. I did put down Irish Spring soap. I shaved it up in small pieces. And even though there's been evidence of the deer coming, they haven't taken out all my hosta. I was worried about them on this side of my garden. So fingers crossed so far. And some of you have asked me about rabbits and bunnies. They are in New Hampshire, so I think it's a matter of time that they will come to my garden as well. So I'm very excited about this little container pot. Here's more of that dipladenia that I bought on clearance last year at the end of the season and overwintered in my garage. You can see the beautiful color it has there. There are a lot of flower buds. They bloom late in the season. It needs to be a certain temperature for them to bloom. So you usually will not see overwintered dipladenia in New Hampshire or cooler climates blooming until probably July. And it's okay. As long as you have other things in your garden that are blooming, then it's well worth the wait. So now I want to talk about this space here. We had 2 trees that were cut right there. We also had 2 trees that were cut right here. And in case you're wondering why I had the trees cut, they were very, very big and they were starting to lean towards my house. So it was not very safe actually. And it had to be done because they literally were leaning right towards the house. And we also had this tree cut. What that did was it made this area actually full sun. I have a little thing that I've been putting in around my yard and monitoring the sun over a 12-hour period on a sunny day each day. And it told me this is full sun. I don't have a lot of full sun in my yard, but this small little pocket here is full sun. And you can see the difference in the hosta. The hosta right there are bleached out. They're not looking good. They're crispy. And I do have drip irrigation that my husband and I put in this bed. So it's definitely not that they're lacking water. And literally right there, you can see the difference. The hostas start to look much nicer. So I'm so excited though. We're gonna tackle this area together. I'm gonna film it and we're gonna do it together. We're gonna be removing a number of plants in here that prefer shade. They're gonna get either potted up or moved to other areas of my yard. And then what we're gonna do is we are gonna shop my yard. There's no need to go shopping in a store. I have plenty of plants that I can take from my yard, and we're going to move them into this space. So, Mr. Budget Gardener has come in and he's just been adding the drip irrigation to help me out. And then once I remove the plants together with you, we are then going to add plants in here. We're going to weed and we're going to mulch this area. So, a lot of work to be done in this space here. And then as we head in this direction here, it starts to get shadier again. Not full shade, but part shade. But it would be unfortunate to mention, look how pretty the blooms look on this hosta. Now these hosta are also getting too much sun. I can tell by just by looking at the leaves. This is a really, really pretty hosta and it grows fast. So if you're looking for hosta that is not very big and that grows fast, this is a perfect hosta. The name of this hosta is Golden Tiara. And it's a little bleached out because of the sun. It would definitely be more of a beautiful color. So definitely look that one up if you're looking for a fast growing, smallerish hosta. So let's move this way. We are basically in my backyard. And I'm not focused on making flower beds towards the backyard. Not yet anyway. That will be one day, hopefully. But for right now, I want to focus on cleaning up and moving plants around in the beds that I have. So we have a number of peonies that were placed here temporarily because I just never had a lot of full sun in my yard. We'll be digging up a bunch of peonies and we're going to move those into these sunny spots of my yard. We also have a number of daylilies. You can see them that they're all starting to bloom. Those also are going to get moved. And I have two main ideas when it comes to my daylilies. In the bay window bed, we're going to be removing every other Stella d'Oro daylily, and we're going to be replacing them with daylilies from here. These daylilies were placed here temporarily until I could think about what I was going to do with them. So since Stella d'Oro daylilies bloom first, then there's a lull in the bay window bed. So I figured if we took out every other Stella d'Oro, we could replace it with some daylilies from this space. And then we can also take a bunch of the daylilies that are in here and move them not very far, just down there where we're getting a whole bunch of full sun now. One thing I've been doing is coming in here with these daylilies and I've been deadheading them. I'm trying to figure out which ones of these are rebloomers because not all daylilies will rebloom for you, but some will if you deadhead them. Many of these daylilies were either ones that I got from my mother-in-law's, ones that I got on Facebook Marketplace, and there are a bunch here. I just want to point that out. A lot of them are not blooming for who knows, different reasons. Maybe the weeds have taken over or they're not getting enough sun. Maybe they need to be divided. There are a lot of daylilies in here. So what you see blooming, it's just a small amount. but I do want to know which ones are rebloomers, just so I know. I already showed you earlier pictures of ones that were blooming around my yard, but I just wanted to show you the space. So lots of work to be done in here. My goal for this year is to clean up this area, but strategically. And strategically means removing plants and putting them in areas where they're going to be happier, in the full sun areas. And then coming in and just doing a massive weeding and basically letting this whole area rest so that we can think about what we're going to do in this shadier part of my yard. So now let's head over towards my vegetable garden. This is where I used to have a large wooden raised bed, and we removed that together in the early spring, and we seeded this area right here where you can see some new grass seed that's germinated and grass is growing. I've been really happy with these Vigo raised beds that we put in. I can't recommend them enough. I think they're great for a big space, for a small space, and everything in between. In this first bed right here, we have cucumbers. And you can see that we plan on putting them up along this trellis. But for right now, they are starting to trellis on their own, but if I have to help them, I come in and I help them out. They're looking really good. I can't wait for us to have cucumbers. I don't see any blossoms on here yet, but pretty soon. I've been coming in and fertilizing these about once every 2 weeks, and I give them liquid fish emulsion. I don't want to give my plants too much fertilizer, but I do want to help them along. In this next space, there are a whole bunch of tomatoes that we started from seed, and they were tomatoes that you helped me pick out when I asked what kind of tomato should I start from seed. And I'm trying a new method called single stemming. So I need to still come in here and do that. I try to do it once a week. So I come in and I basically just keep trellising my tomatoes with little clips that are in here, like these little clips here. And then I also come in here and I remove suckers. So I need to do that still. I do that once a week and I need to come in. So like, for example, this right here, I need to come in and remove this sucker because I don't want my plants to be too bushy. I want them to be growing vertically up along this here. So right here, I would be coming in and removing this sucker. But then I would take the main plant, which is this main plant right here, and I would come in and clip it like that. The other thing I like to do every 2 weeks is give fertilizer to my tomatoes. And I'm using tomato tone and I sprinkle it just at the base. And then the other thing I've been doing is just removing the bottom leaves. And by removing the bottom leaves, water doesn't splash up on the leaves, which would then bring in some sort of diseases. At the base here, I had come in and just planted a whole bunch of alyssum. And the reason I did the alyssum is to bring in the beneficial wasps. So I wish I had put in more marigolds, but I didn't have a chance to get marigolds. If I can find some, I will get them planted here. The marigolds help keep the tomato hornworms away. And they also keep the butterflies that lay the tomato hornworm eggs away, which are I believe they're the hummingbird moth. When it comes to the alyssums bring in the wasps, and the wasps lay their eggs on those tomato hornworms. And in effect, they basically kill off the tomato hornworms. It's like a symbiotic relationship. We have a timer set up in here, and there is drip irrigation. It's been working out really well, and we did it so that the drip irrigation is hooked up to our faucet, which is right down there. And we just trenched a line going from the faucet over to these raised beds. And what's very exciting is the 42-day tomato here. Looks like a tomato that's ready to be picked very soon. I've been enjoying the bluebirds. They constantly have little babies in this house here, and you can see Mama. She's feeding her little babies, and I can hear them squawking at her. It's so sweet. And then in this raised bed, we have bush beans. They are just now starting to flower, and in fact, you can see that there are little beans on there. So it's just a matter of another 1 to 2 weeks, and we'll be harvesting green beans. My green beans are also getting fertilized every 2 weeks, again with liquid fish emulsion. And then towards the back, it was a late start, but it's okay. We have some peas, and the peas are now starting to blossom, and we have peas that we can start picking pretty soon. And then we have the same type of vegetables on this side here. Just like when it comes to flowers and having the art of succession planting, the same is true with vegetables. I could definitely come in this time of year and plant some more beans. It's not late, and I could do that. I might still do that. The question is, where will I do that? One idea is I could just tuck in some plants, or I should say some seeds on the backside here, or I might be able to tuck some in towards the front side here. I'll have to see. I'm going to experiment with that. But I am very pleased with my Vigo raised beds. I think that they've been a hit for this year. The rose garden has been beautiful. I've already come in and cut back or deadheaded a bunch of my roses for two reasons: to keep things looking nice and tidy, but also to encourage more blooms. I keep getting distracted by the bluebirds because they keep squawking at Mama. It's so much fun to watch because they're hungry and they just need their parents to keep feeding them this time of year. What's interesting about birds is they can have two, sometimes even three clutches. I just love reading and learning more about birds in the garden. The wax begonias that we started from seed are looking really pretty in the rose garden. And I like having them in this space because as we wait for the roses to put on their second flush of blooms, we at least have some color in here. Another plant that was recently added in here, and I really just tucked them in, I would say kind of temporarily, are lavender that we started from seed. I do want lavender in the rose garden. I'm not sure about the placement of these, so for that reason, I say temporarily. I want them in the rose garden. I just don't know if the placement will be right. My initial thought is I should be having something on the outside of the rose garden, like a small boxwood hedge or the lavender. I'm not quite sure. So I need to think a little bit more about that. But until then, I have tucked in all the lavender in here. You can see that we have more of the coreopsis in this flower bed. And then a plant that's just not looking so great, and it might just be because it gets overhead irrigation on it, are the Veronica or Speedwell. We put them in here in the springtime. So it's a trial to see how they do. These were divisions from Veronica that I have in the front yard. And if I find that they're not doing well, we'll remove them and move them to another area of the yard. But I want to give them 1 year. But the roses really did put on a wonderful show when they put out their first initial flush. So we just have to wait a little bit longer, and they'll put on more flowers within a matter of weeks. Right close by to the rose garden here in the backyard is my back porch. We recently came in and power washed it and cleaned it up. So I'm excited because I am planning to add some container pots on here. But I wanted to show you the window boxes that we put together. I actually want to put up on the screen what these window boxes look like when we first put them together. And now I want to show you just how beautiful they are. So we have the lamium, and I've been coming in and deadheading those to keep them blooming. And look at the beacon impatiens. They are very happy here. I would say of all the years I've planted up these window boxes, this is my favorite combination. I wasn't sure if this area got too much sun, but the impatiens are really happy. And I mentioned earlier, since I start them from seed, you just never know what color you're going to get. And I think that's what makes it even more interesting and fun. And I have 3 cats. There's Winnie. Hi, Winnie. And I want to show you the third window box here. Looking very, very pretty. It's amazing how much color something like an impatiens can give you. I come in every week and do things like weeding. So if I see a weed, I pull them out. And then the other thing I do is I do come in with Miracle Grow, and I give Miracle Grow fertilizer to all of my annuals that are in the landscape as well as in all my container pots. I do that once a week. For potting mix, I make my own potting mix. And honestly, I feel like that's the way to go. You can save so much money by making your own potting mix. And the plants seem very happy. So, just for perspective, this is my backyard, and I just showed you the back porch. Upstairs is my bedroom balcony, and I'll bring you up there in a little bit. We have the rose garden there, and then we have our raised beds over here. There's the backyard, where I technically really could just keep going and make flower beds where the lawn ends and where the woods begin. I would love to do that, but I really am trying to focus on the flower beds that I currently have and giving them the TLC and the love that they deserve. There have been previous years where I've tucked in flowers in my backyard and where they really looked pretty, but they have just gone wild now, and I am totally fine with that. I love coming into these spaces. I love shopping my yard, pulling out plants as I see them blooming, and moving them to other areas of my yard. And I love showing this space because I want you to see that it's okay. It's okay if you had a beautiful space and it's overgrown, because I do have spaces, many spaces in my yard that are wild and look like this. And it's totally fine. Now, as we head back towards the south side of my house, in this space here, I do need to come in here and give it some work, some TLC, but there are some beautiful things in here. We have a stilby that needs to be cut back. We also have some beautiful stackies or statues, however you want to say it. And this is humelo. It's very, very pretty. It does well in full sun, part shade. And then we also have some more stilby, basically the same repeating plants. And then towards the middle here are some wonderful coral bells or heuchera. Towards the back there, those nice glossy leaves, that's a type of rhododendron. Now, it hasn't bloomed for me. It looks really healthy, very lush, but it has not bloomed for me. So I need to think about why. Does it need fertilizer? Does it need something else? Does it need more sun? I'm not quite sure. And as we head in this direction here, we're going to continue working in this space together. We've already come out here and we've done some work. We had a lot of fun in the shade garden. Someone had mentioned that they wanted me to do a tour of the shade garden, so I'm going to go over some plants that we have in here, just in case you have a shady part of your yard and you're wondering what to do, because shade gardens can be tough when it comes to adding color. Let's start with this right here. I have not cut it back yet, and I want to show you the leaves because they're really pretty. This is a woodland plant, and it's called bloodroot. I did cut it back down in that part of the flower bed, and someone asked me why I cut it back because it does look really pretty. I cut it back because I was working on the flower bed and I was just trying to tidy things up. But you don't have to do that. You can leave your leaves up because they do add a lot of nice interest and they are meant to be a woodland plant. And in future years, I may consider leaving the leaves up in this space here. So we'll have to see. But I wanted to point out that plant. We already talked about the stackies. We also talked about the different colors or different types of coral bells or heuchera that you can play with in a shade garden. Like, look at that really pretty purple one. I think it's called Palace Purple, but I could be wrong. A lot of the heuchera that I have in my yard are quite old. I've had them for a number of years, so I don't necessarily know the names. And the same is true with that green colored, like pistachio colored one. That is super pretty, and that adds a nice pop of color in here. The big thing is that I'm trying to show you, even if I'm not able to tell you the names, is to know that you can have these types of coral bells in a shade garden to add color in there. Another thing that looks really pretty in a shade garden is lungwort or pulmonaria. It looked really pretty when it bloomed during the early spring months. But look at how pretty it looks in a shade garden. So you would want to have that towards the front of your shade garden bed. Astilbe is always very pretty for its leaves as well as its blooms. And then right near the astilbe is foam flower. It's a type of tiarella. And even though it has some pretty blooms still left on it, many of the blooms have gone by. And you're really growing it also for its beautiful leaves. I have many of the same plants that are repeating in this area. I think visually that always looks nice when you can repeat different plants in the same area. It just carries your eyes along. We recently worked on the front part of this flower bed, and I'm very pleased with how it's looking. And I want you to see how they add a nice pop of color in this space. And what I'm talking about specifically are those smaller size hosta. They add that nice chartreuse color in here, and I like repeating them just for impact. And then right near it, look at the little ferny leaves. That's called dwarf goat's beard. And that already bloomed. It had a very pretty white flower to it. But now it's just adding that nice texture coupled with the miniature or small size of these hosta. What I found when it comes to miniature or small hosta is they're not very easy to find at garden centers. So do a search on the internet on mini hostas or small hostas, and you will find someone most likely close by to you where you can buy these types of, I'd call them more specialty type hostas. They're great to have in a woodland garden or basically where you want to be able to see them towards the front of any sort of flower bed. This beautiful fern is maidenhair fern, and that is super pretty in a shade garden. I really think it's so interesting, and it just pops in this area. And I have hair fern in two places in here. What I'm planning to do with many of the flowers in my yard, but especially in this space here when it comes to these type of plants, is dividing them. I can't stress that enough. The more you divide your plants, the more plants you can have in your garden. You don't have to keep buying the plants. You can just shop your own yard. Towards the back here, they're starting to go by. They look like a stilbe, but they're not. They are goat's beard. And I already showed you a miniature goat's beard. This is a taller type of goat's beard, and it looked really pretty when it was blooming. It was white color. And I bought one piece of that on Facebook Marketplace for $6, and I've been able to divide it now a number of times. I only bought it a few years ago. So I have another one right here. And then I have a few more back here. These beautiful yellow flowers. I can't stress this one enough in a shade garden. This is called Ligularia. And the leaves are very striking, the heart-shaped beautiful leaves. But then look at the beautiful yellow flowers. And it's just starting to bloom. It's going to bloom from the bottom, and then it will eventually make its way upwards. It's a slow grower. I've had it for a number of years. and I've divided it once, and that's why I have another grouping here. I'll be coming in and I'll be dividing that plant this year. And I can turn these 2 patches into 4 patches, and then eventually 4 patches into 8 patches. The beautiful white colored blooms that you see here, more of the Annabelle hydrangeas. There are so many different kinds of hydrangeas out there. And with Annabelles, since they're not trademarked or have a patent on them, you can easily propagate them from cuttings or even from division. A lot of times they send suckers at the base. So if you don't have Annabelle hydrangea, but you know someone else that does, check the base of the plant and you very likely can find freebie plants that you can dig up from there. I like to play with the different kinds of hosta in here just for variety reasons. So we have a lot of different hosta in here. And I like adding this red color of the heuchera because I find that I was missing that red color, and it's just nice to have the red pop in here. So I normally add some annuals in here. I haven't done it yet. I'd like to add some of the impatiens that I have plenty of. But notice, even without annuals, this woodland shady part of my garden still has a lot of interest in it. We have a type of Brunnera. I recently planted that in here. That's looking very pretty. And then right near it is epimedium that looked very beautiful when it bloomed during the springtime. And I only bought 1 plant of epimedium. For me, it doesn't grow very fast, but I was able to divide it. And so now I have 3 epimedium plants in here. And then this other beautiful fern that you see here is Japanese painted iris. And that's also very slow growing for me. I started with 1 small plant in 2018 when I bought it. Well, actually, I didn't buy it. I got it from my mother-in-law's garden. And I was able to, since then, I've divided it. So now I have 3 small plants. And then we have lots of different heuchera in here. And I purposely planted some of these bright colored ones to add that nice pop of color in here. Look at the beautiful leaves of the Lenten rose or hellebore. Even though they're not blooming anymore, they just add a lot of nice interest in this flower bed. And tucked in the corner right here, if you peek right over, is a beautiful astilbe. And that's adding some color in here. And then we have a whole bunch of the lungwort or pulmonaria as we head down towards the back of the space. Along the trees here, we have more of the hanging baskets. And at the base of these trees are a bunch of miniature or small hosta. And these are called Lakeside Zinger. And they look really, really pretty tucked in around the trees, I feel. Another small or miniature hosta that's just so sweet. This one you might be able to find at garden centers. They seem to sell this one quite a bit. It's called blue mouse ears. And it actually grows pretty quickly. I'm thinking of trying this one out around my pond and seeing how it does around the pond because I have so much of it and I'd like to move some out there. Before we continue on to the shade garden, I want to show you the space here. So we have my porch in the backyard, and then we have the rock wall. On a different day, I'm going to be coming in here and really, I'm just going to be redoing this area. I'm not happy with it. A lot of changes need to happen here. We also have a clematis here that I hadn't cut back for a long time. So I came in the springtime and I cut this back really, really hard. You can see it has a lot of nice fresh growth on it. We'll see if it blooms for me. But I just wanted to give it a rejuvenation prune because it had a lot of old dead growth on it. So if it doesn't bloom for me this year, that's quite fine. It just really needed to be cleaned up. And let's see if it puts out any blooms. And if not this year, we'll look forward to it next year. So we're going to head back towards my what I like to call my hosta garden. But before we go to the hosta garden, we have some beautiful flowers. They put on a great show a few weeks ago, but they're still blooming for us. And these are feverfew. Feverfew likes to seed itself everywhere, and I have found little seedlings here and there. So I need to think a little bit more about that plant because I think it's really pretty, and I'd like to incorporate that in some of my more sunnier areas of my yard. That golden tiara that I mentioned earlier, I have a piece of it right here. So you can see how pretty the leaves are. And not only that, how pretty the blooms are on it. I actually love, when I look this way, all the different beautiful colors, texture, foliage that we see in this area right here. So I call this my hosta garden. Even though I have hosta in a number of areas of my yard, this is where I have a majority of different kinds of hosta. I want to show you, you can't see it, there's a rock wall on the edge of this. And I have the same kind of hosta lining just that one side of the rock wall, just to basically anchor the space. And they're all budded up or they're just starting to bloom. But then inside of all of that one particular kind of hosta, we now have a variety of different kinds of hosta in here. And like any flower bed, this hosta garden is work in progress. I still have some changes I want to make in here, but I'm really happy with how it's filled in over time. Many of the hosta that I have were hosta that I got just small pieces of from friends or family members. And over time, I've divided the hosta. And I'm always looking at the different height, the different colors, and just playing around with that in my hosta garden. I don't usually show you this angle shot, but here we are at the back of the hosta garden, looking at the back of my house, just so you can see what it looks like from this angle here. I guess this is the angle a deer would see if it wanted to come in here and munch on my hosta, which fortunately they don't seem to munch on my hosta back here. And I'm quite okay with that. It was probably a few years ago when I was looking at my hosta garden saying, I don't have enough of the big size hosta in the back here, or I don't have enough of the lime green colored leaves in the back here. Those are things I'm looking for when I'm working in my hosta garden. And then I just come in and I divide. And that's why you might see one plant here or one plant there. And it's because I've come in and divided plants and just strategically placed them in here. So we're going to leave the hosta garden and we're now heading towards my side walkway. And in the side walkway is what I call the old arborvitae bed. The old arborvitae bed used to have 3 arborvitae in it, and I removed them because I didn't like the placement of them and they didn't look very good. And this space has really evolved. Every year it's slow to take off, but once it takes off, and it's usually around July, I need to remind myself of that. It's tough when you live in a cool climate with a short growing season like I do. I always feel like in May or June, nothing's looking great in certain flower beds like this one. But come July, things are starting to really fill in. And I need to just be patient. I think as gardeners, we have to try to remember to do that. Be patient with our spaces. But I'm very happy with how everything's looking now. Some of the plants that you see in here are plants that we've already talked about, but I'll go over them with you. So when we have annuals, like these blue colored ones, this is trailing lobelia. The white colored one right here is alyssum. But then we also have another white colored one, and that's another trailing lobelia. And we have a different colors of trailing lobelia because they were just all different ones I started from seed. The pink as well as the white colored flowers right here, These are wax begonias. And since I collect my own seeds, we're always going to have a variety and a mix of different begonias, as well as even the coleus. I tell myself I should buy my coleus seeds, but honestly, I'm happy with the ones that I collect. They're never going to be 100% all looking the same, but I think that also makes it kind of fun and interesting. So lots of different coleus tucked in. And then there is a perennial in the center here. It's a juga. It can be a thug, it can be aggressive, but in this garden space, I feel like it's doing what I want it to do, which is basically it gives me that nice pop of early spring color that this flower bed doesn't get otherwise. But then after the flowers go by, the ground cover just covers the center here. And it basically envelopes these plants that are in the middle, which are a type of small leaf rhododendron. And I place them in here temporarily to give them basically time to grow on. They give me a little bit of height in this flower bed. They actually give a little bit of green color in the flower bed. But then we also have the beautiful annuals on the outside. I mentioned earlier I started a bunch of different trailing lobelia from seed, and I had to show you close up. So we have this really, really strikingly blue one here. But look how pretty this purple one looks. So when I collect the seeds, I'll be labeling them just so I can remember the different colors. And it'll be interesting to see what color combinations we get next year. I'm okay if they mix, if we don't get 100% true to the parent plant. And I had made a video yesterday with my geraniums, and I said my goal was to get them in pots and containers. I did not get them in pots and containers, but they are pretty, and they're going to get potted up soon. Okay, so let's head along the side walkway. Many times when I do my garden tours, I'm just going to show you how things are looking, even if we have boots on the porch and we have basically life. Things along the porch here. It's all good. But we're going to stay focused on the flowers. So in this container pot, we're waiting. We're being patient. We have some alyssum that we started from seed. We have more of the beautiful dipladenia that we overwintered. And this was actually one that I was able to divide off. So it's a small little plant. And then I showed you recently in a video my process for taking care of my geraniums that I overwintered bare root. So they're all looking really nice. I really am happy with how my pelargoniums are looking. There's 3 in this pot. They've really filled in. In fact, they've filled in so much that I've had to cut back the leaves, and I have to keep cutting back the leaves just to show off the trailing lobelia, because otherwise it doesn't have enough sunlight. But I'm really happy with how that's looking. And I have 2 of them in the front here. So we have one over there, and then we have a second one over here. When it comes to the trailing vinca, each year I divide whatever I have. And like I said, I overwinter them in my garage. So then I'll have double the amount next year. You can also easily propagate that from cuttings if you took it and just put it in a glass of water. Same with the geraniums. You can easily propagate those with cuttings. It's amazing how you can make more plants just from one plant. And as we turn the corner of the side porch here, in the distance, you can see the raised beds. You can see the window boxes. But then I want to show you, we have 2 more window boxes here that are looking just as beautiful. And I'll stand on top of the porch in a minute so you can see a top-down view. Right now we are down below just looking up at them. And speaking down below and looking up at them, so if we are right here and we stand back and we look up, you can see that we have those window boxes that are off my bedroom balcony. So it just kind of gives you perspective. there are a lot of different window boxes just in this one area here. So now we're going to look at the side walkway flower bed. This bed sees a lot of changes during the season. And right now, because there was a little bit of a lull, together we planted up some container pots that are just starting to fill in. And we planted them up with different proven winner supertunias. There's a large plant here I want to talk about. This is called Joe Pye weed, and that provides nice late summer, early fall interest. So we are going to be patient because that's a perennial that will give us some color later in the season. Some other perennials that are tucked in here, and they're not in the most optimal place, but I want to talk about them, is we do have globe thistle, and that's looking really nice. It's just starting to basically bud up. It will be a nice blue color. And then we also have some yarrow. And I'll show you it on the other side of this flower bed where you can see it a little bit better. But it has a really pretty pink color flower to it, like a hot pink. I have a rhododendron here that I cut back pretty hard after it was done blooming. And at the base of it are some hosta. They were definitely shaded before, so they were thriving more, but now they're getting a little bit more sun than they would like. I most likely will move those. Then we also have some Asiatic lilies in here. Some are starting to go by, like these orange ones down here. And then you can see that we have another one that's all budded up. At the front of this flower bed are some beautiful dianthus. They bloomed beautifully in the early spring months. And I showed you recently my process for coming in and cutting these back. So in the container pots are more of the supertunias. We've just barely recently planted those, so it's going to take another few weeks for them to put on a glorious show. But what is putting on a glorious show are these beautiful plants here. This is Eryngium or sea holly. And they are either budded up, which is why they're green, or they are now starting to bloom, which is why they're blue. And they have such a vibrant electric blue color to them. They look so pretty, and I want you to notice how beautiful they look coupled with the pink yarrow in the background. These are plants that I would like to add in some of my more sunnier areas because these get pretty tall, and I think they would look nice towards the middle or the back of a full sun flower bed. Another plant that I want to talk about are perennial mums. I have some more perennial mums in here, and I recently came in and cut these ones back really hard, and I gave them 10-10-10 fertilizer. They're going to be a really pretty purple color in the late summer months, early fall months. We also have more of the Joe Pye weed over here. And then in the center of these two windows is a perennial type of grass that really needs to be divided. And then we also have some more of the beautiful globe thistle that will be blooming for us, hopefully by our next garden tour. That yellow flower that you see is Paradoxa echinacea. This plant is native here to us in New Hampshire. But I want to bring you in closer for this yarrow. Look how pretty that is. Such a vibrant pink color. I only have it in this one area of my garden, and I'd like to move this to some other areas where it gets a little more support. In this space, it's reaching and it's not able to stand up straight. So I'd like to move it in an area where it's supported by other plants so you can really enjoy its color. Here's some of the bubblegum supertunia. Such a vigorous plant, so pretty. And I love the color of the pink next to the blue of the eryngium. When you stand back and you just look in this general area, even if this particular flower bed doesn't have a lot of color, I want you to see around it though, beyond it. And that's where it gets really interesting because even if a flower bed has a lull or doesn't have a lot going on in it, there might be areas just beyond it where you're like, wait a minute, what's that? Let me go look at it. It's blooming. And I think that is also an interesting part of gardening is making you want to wonder What is something around the corner that you see? Let's talk about these 5-gallon buckets here because they're here. We might as well talk about them. My friend Linda, who has a backyard plant nursery, had some irises that she was looking to thin out. So I was able to purchase some from her, and these will be going in a sunny area of my yard, the one in the backyard where trees were cut. So I'm looking forward to adding these out there. So for right now, they are sitting in water as we wait to get them planted. But I'm excited about adding them because we're going to have a lot of different kinds of iris in that area. We're going to spin this way. I have 2 garage doors here, and we have a container pot that we put together with more of the zonal or pelargonium geraniums that we overwintered. And they are looking so pretty. These are not set up on any sort of drip irrigation, so I have to be diligent about coming in and watering them. And when it comes to this dusty miller that's here, this is not hardy where I live. It sometimes will survive, sometimes it won't. It's marginal. But I am able to overwinter that plant in my garage. So it's nice because I don't have to buy that every year. And I don't know why I want to show you all this, but I want to show you it because this is what I look at every day. And it can sometimes bring me down. It can sometimes be overwhelming. But then I push myself, I push through it and say, I got this. I can do this. And I mentioned it earlier. Let me know. Let me know if you want me to bring you along, or do you want to just see a garden tour where everything is in place and it's all done? Because I need to do this and I need some sort of motivation. And maybe you can help me and motivate me. Lots of plants that we started from seed that need to get in the ground. Look how pretty they are. These are a type of impatiens, balsam impatiens. We have some amaranth, love lies bleeding. There's canna lilies that we started from seed. They've bloomed, they're budded up. Dahlias, lots of dahlias. There are some beautiful Morgomfrina. So that is my mid-July garden tour. It was so important for me today to show you the good, the bad, and the ugly, because I want you to see it. I want you to see that you're not alone if you're feeling overwhelmed, or if you're feeling like you still have lots of annuals or lots of perennials to get in the ground. We all are feeling the same thing. This time of year, we're so busy deadheading, pruning, but then we want to divide plants, but then we still have plants to get in the ground. My message is not to complain or make excuses. My message is to say, keep going. Whatever it is that makes you happy, do a little at a time and be kind to yourself. Step back and enjoy your gardens. I don't do that enough, and I need to do that enough. I want to be able to look around my garden and say, wow, look at this pretty flower. So not only am I giving you that advice, I want to give that advice to myself as well. But I really love enjoying my space with you. I hope that in some way it motivates you. In reality, none of us have the same gardens. Some of us have much bigger gardens, some of us have smaller gardens. Some of us live in the country, some of us live in the city. Maybe all you have is one container pot, but my goal is to motivate you or inspire you in some way. I love to teach you different things on how you can propagate or overwinter or divide plants. I also really enjoy sharing as a community, and we can do that just by making comments down below, talking about issues we're having in our garden, or maybe that this year wasn't a great year for us, or how we learned something new. So if you have any questions or comments or you want to share, please drop them down in the comment section below. And until the next video, make it a great day with gardening. This balcony is off my bedroom, and you can see that there are a bunch of petunias up here. And we had put these window boxes together, and I just want to show you how beautiful they're looking. Just like my other container pots, I've been diligent about coming in and deadheading, pruning, and fertilizing. When we look in the backyard, this is what it looks like when we're looking down. So we have the rose garden right there. And then in the distance are all the raised garden beds, or vegetable garden, I should say. And then you can see all of the different daylilies right over there that are blooming. And right behind the daylilies, we had put wood chips in there just to let that area basically rest for this year. And the goal will be to go in once we've moved all the perennials from that space towards the front and let that space rest as well. And I'll be putting down either wood chips or mulch there. And look at how beautiful on the back porch the impatiens are looking. So pretty. And I know a number of you have mentioned you like looking at how it looks like when you look from upstairs. So right down in the back there, that's my shade garden area. You can see the hanging baskets that are on the trees, the beautiful hosta lining around the trees, and then just all the different color and variety of plants that you see down there in the shaded part of my yard. And then as we head in this direction here, that's where the shade garden ends. And then we have the side walkway that begins. There's the old arborvitae bed. And if you look down, that's the side porch there. And in the distance there, towards the back, that's where we have the long border, where it just barely starts. For my yard, it really doesn't make sense to do drone shots because we have so many trees, it's not very open. But at least from my back bedroom, this gives you an idea of how things are looking from up here. Now let's go to the front yard. So here's a different perspective. We're on the front yard looking down. You can see the nursery. As we pan around from the nursery, this is my front yard where it's pretty shady, but I want you to see all the impatiens that are looking very pretty. We have all the daylilies. You can see the lilac bed out in the distance there. Lots of very pretty color when you look down. And then you start to see the border of the heucheras all towards the front there. Then as we head towards the bay window bed, this is just a top-down view looking down at that, as well as the front walkway. It just gives you a general idea of all the different colors and everything as you're looking down.